Welcome everybody back to the Segal Talks. It's week 5 and my name is Frank Henschker and I'm the director of the Segal Center. We are here at the Graduate Center CUNY of the City University in New York City. And it's been quite a journey around the world to hear voices from our fellow artists, from creators of theater and performance. And we listen to them because we do think it is significant and important to tune in and hear what the mood is, the atmosphere, thoughts, how moments are experienced, and what consequences it might have for work. And it is always important to listen to the artists. They are being on the right side of justice, or right side of history, right side of progress. And if one listens to them, as I do think many complicated moments in history could have been avoided. And now again, it's a moment of crisis, of deep consequences for the entire world. We are connected like we've never been connected before. And as we wrote in our little statement in case you saw it, we went back to the old Brecht sentence that new times need new forms of theater. And today we have a great ensemble with us, a great collective of artists or journalists, architects, social sculptors. It is the really great Rimini Protokoll from Germany. Most of you might know about their work. If not, please do look it up. They have found new forms. They have found new ways of showing, creating, and participating in performance, in theater, site-specific word street performances. And I can't wait to hear from Helgard Haug and Stefan Kaegi and Daniel Wetzel, who are here with us. It's week 5. We have tomorrow Guy Regis Jr. from Haiti. Judith Miller will translate from NYU. Jalila Bakar from Tunisia is on Wednesday. Peter Sellers, the great American director and opera director, will be on Thursday. And Oscar Eustace, who runs the public theater, will be there with Tony Torn, who runs a 20-seat theater out of his house. So we got an insight also from New York. But first of all, welcome Rimini Protokoll.
Hello.
Thank you.
So you can all hear me, and I hope all is well. So maybe just tell me, where are you guys at the moment? Maybe Helgard and then Stefan, Daniel, where are you and what time is it?
It's 6 o'clock in the evening and I'm back in Berlin. I spent a couple of weeks extended time in the countryside, like close to Berlin, but not in the city, and in Brandenburg. And now I'm back for a couple of days, and there's been some new regulations in Berlin just starting this Monday. Like there are some schools open, so my son goes to school again, and there is the duty to wear a mask in the public transport, which changes a bit the atmosphere in the city.
So everybody has masks in Berlin on the streets?
Well, no, it's Kreuzberg where I live, so not everybody. Definitely, but in the public transport, even there, like people don't really, not everybody's wearing them, and it's okay, it's accepted, but the majority of the people are doing it now. Incredible. Yeah, and there's a fashion going on, like which is the nicest mask.
Yeah, Stefan, where are you?
I'm in Switzerland, Lausanne, where I was rehearsing until 3 days before actually 3 days before my opening of my new piece here in Théâtre Vidi. The lockdown interrupted our rehearsals and I decided to stay on this side of the border. If I went back to Berlin, I would have to spend 2 weeks in quarantine. Regulations here are a bit more loose. I just come back from Lake of Geneva and I had a swim. And there's quite some people without masks, holding respectable distances, but still, you kind of guess a certain multitude of people.
Yeah. Did you swim with your mask on? No. No
mask, but also no surfboard. It's hanging above me.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's tough on this lake. Yeah, to surf. That is great. And Daniel, where are you at the moment?
I'm supposed to be in Greece, but I ended up in Berlin like a few days before the curfew, before the lockdown. I just came with my daughter anyways, and then we decided to stay because it went step by slice. They said that schools might open later again and so on. So now we're here since already 5 weeks, and it was the right decision. Because in Athens, especially, I guess due to the smaller amount of intensive care beds and stations, the regulations are really harsh, and you can only go out by permission that you receive by SMS. And now over Greek Easter, drones have been flying around everywhere, and people would not be allowed to even drive with their cars, So I think it's better for us here for life and work at the moment. Yeah, but they're proud. In Greece, almost nothing happens, almost no casualties, and really a very low rate of infections. Also, in terms of per capita, they're much better than even Germany.
That's remarkable. And Easter is such a big holiday in Greece, so that's quite something to have.
Yeah, the family of my daughter, they were secretly meeting some days before Easter and not leave the house anymore, because it was clear on Easter you can't drive. So they locked all themselves in. Of course, breaking quite some regulations because they all met in a smaller group though. But anyways, it was a very, very different Easter this year.
So like early Christian communities, people were meeting Easter in hideouts and in secrecy. But how does it feel for you all? You're such a, in a way, cosmopolitan global ensemble. Now you're in your homes. How do you guys feel?
Yeah, normally we would have been in New York, so this feels bad, like not,
You would have been at BAM last week, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You were supposed to come to the Segal. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, that's a show. It's called 100% Brooklyn in this case, so 100% city, like is the overtitle. And it's 100 people on stage that represent the city or the district. Like it's the first time that they convinced us to focus on Brooklyn and to say Brooklyn as a city itself somehow, and you get all the diversity that you want, that we normally are looking for, because we try to invite like the whole city being represented by those 100 people. And the casting was going on, so there were already, I don't know, Stefan, you know this better.
94 people, I think,
92?
were found.
Okay.
94 people already were subscribed to take part in this event, and they are to be found in such a way that they exactly match the statistics. So there were 52, or there would have been in the end 52 women on stage and only 48 men, and there would have been, we already had, I think, 2, 4, 6, I'm just looking at the statistics here again, 8 under 9-year-old kids on stage, 4 were still missing, and there were a lot of different nationalities, as you can guess, if you know Brooklyn. We had, 12 Asian performers, like born in Asia, and Hispanics was 19, and more actually Black American than white American, and they were all.
What were the numbers?
To find these people, BAM was already casting since, late November, I think. So it's really, I mean, we've had many cancellations of tours, but this one was a particularly hard one because so much work was already done and so many people were eager to make it happen.
Yeah, and just everything prepared, and then it was clear. Like I actually got I went to the consulate to get the visa, which is quite a hard thing to do. It makes you apply for hours on online documents and so on, and queue and get there. And that was the very morning where they said, okay, no Europeans are allowed in the States at the moment. So it was a bit absurd because we were just ready to go and do this show. And it's always a very nice show to get to know a city as well. Like, I mean, we've been to New York and to Brooklyn as well and presented work there, but it's like a bit like a space where you place questions in. So the most part of the piece is consisting of questions that we ask the 100 people on stage, and then have different modes to answer the questions. Like either with yes and no going to one and the other side, or with colored cardboards, or different performative elements. And that's always very exciting. Like if you start preparing for the city and then wonder what are the essential questions and what is really important to debate and which really needs to be displayed as well. So it's an easy way to display all these contradictions of a society.
And obviously in such a situation, it's so exactly the contrary of what's allowed now, because it would have been brought how many more, definitely more than 1,000 people would have been sitting in the incredible BAM theater, and they react to it as well, because it exchanges a part of the audience, as these people that are, most of them obviously not theater makers, normally not going to an institution like BAM to see anything. And now they will be there, and now they will be bringing their people. It's actually the only really piece that we have that really makes a huge amount of people gather. And at the moment, nobody knows when such a thing happens.
That's not possible, yes. And I think the idea is to have 100 people who represent statistically the city. And as they said, the majority African is a black, a color community, and then the white, Asian Americans and others. It would have been fascinating to see that new approach. For you all, and maybe Daniel also, do you feel something is changing in your thinking, or do you feel you are more or less, you're saying, yeah, we always did something that dealt with such issues? Do you feel in your artistic work there's some reformatting going on the hard drive in your brain?
Well, basically, we're actually pretty busy still with preparing work that still might happen at some point later the year or next year. But we are still able to kind of work, and a lot of our work consists of writing concepts. A problem at the moment is to try to find co-producers, because globally nobody is really sure when they can work the way they used to work, especially venues and cultural programs, festivals, and so on. So there's a big insecurity that we can also feel, because it's not so easy to speak about fundings at the moment. But in terms of what we're developing, there hasn't been a halt so far. And yes, okay, then perhaps let away the financial situation. It is a remarkable experience. It is almost like being in the plot of some, performance conceptualist or utopian, to say everybody stay home for a moment, for some weeks and see what happens then. It's in a way it's an amazing experiment. This is how it feels from here. I know that worldwide, in many cases, perhaps most of the cases, it doesn't feel like just interesting, but really, really bad. But this is how it looks from my end at the moment. Then, okay, now is a big request for all kinds of interactive, internet-based, voice over IP, performance formats. Let's see whether there's a push to new forms that will be helpful and create, even once we're able to move and join and meet the way we did before. Clearly, theater is about coming together. That's what many people also stress, whose works are being streamed now and so on. There have been amazing numbers of clicks for certain just streams of videos of performances that might have been on. I heard yesterday there was one streaming of a Hamlet show in Schaubühne that they had 36,000 viewers, which is far more than a theater could contain. So this is amazing, but also, of course, these actors would have preferred to perform in front of 700 people live instead, because this is just essentially theater as we know it.
there are several aspects of it. Now, there's on one hand, there's this not being allowed to come together, which hurts really physically sometimes in the evening. I'm at home and I'm normally in a theater in the evening. But there's also the not being able to travel that changes our life very strongly. But that's something we've been a bit busy thinking anyway a lot in the last year. We became 20 years old as a group, not privately. And we started reflecting, is this international touring by sending performances around? And so many of our international tours now have been canceled. We just counted, I think, 37 tours, productions, events that we would have held until the summer have been
remarkable.
postponed.
37.
Yeah.
Until end of July, yes.
But a bit of this impossibility to travel, it falls together with an uncomfortability that we felt already last year, discussing a lot about issues of climate change. Can there be formats of theater where maybe we don't need to travel, where rather the idea travels, where the conversation, where the interaction with other continents happens in a way without being there? So that's one project where it's actually not so uninspiring to be in these times to develop this piece that is supposed to open next year without people traveling, but expanding very much the technical rider, the instructions, the ways in which in a very local way things can happen that travel from far.
In a way, instruction-based art. There are some, visual artists who work that they write 10 rules and then people do their own work, their own performance, or like a play, it's been written, but people do something with it and the writer is no longer there. But even so, as Daniel said, maybe this all looks like a big Rimini Protocol experiment. Let's see what happens when the people have to stay at home, like your famous experiments. You restage the climate change debate in a theater. You declared the main shareholder meeting of Mercedes-Benz as a performance and declared everybody as an actor. You did the famous Wallenstein, where you said, we take the structure of the play, of the Goethe, but we take people from real life who put it in. Is there something where you think this crisis where we have to find new forms, to go through? Is that something where you feel now you're thinking of things you haven't thought before, or you say no, actually what we did already in some ways had us prepared us for this?
Well, I mean, technically, I think we were prepared. We actually started very, very early when Skype was still not really used by many people. We had a project launched where a person in India, in Kolkata, is talking to a person wherever, like mainly in Europe, but in the US as well. And like to establish this kind of situation, to say, first of all, like it was just only the voice actually talking to a stranger and starting a conversation about where am I and where are you, and the reality and situation the call center agents are actually in the call center. So what does it mean to serve in the back office of big companies that pretend that the call center is just in a neighborhood, and to go into this, in this theater in a way, and be a performer, have a different name than your personal name, pretend you're in the same time zone, pretend you know what the weather is like, and so on. And that's their normal reality. And then to stage a play with them where we repeat the same situation, like it's two people meeting on a Skype line, and then in the very end, actually, they only had a moment where they would see each other. And we realized that many people they really had very, very deep conversations. So it was nice actually to have this intimate situation as well, and to talk to a stranger and maybe use this situation to reveal something that you wouldn't reveal your neighbor or your friend or a family member. So that's something that we worked with a lot, and where it's clear, like in a given situation, there's always, you can always turn it into something else, and you can always create a play with it. You can create a play with VR in a VR Google world, and so on. But still, I mean, what Daniel mentioned is we normally do theater because we are interested in social interaction. And that's really something I miss as well, where sometimes, like I do radio plays, for example, where I really enjoy to be with me under my headphones for quite a while, and or it's times where we do more writing and so on, so that the situation I think everybody of us is familiar with as well, like to have this personal lockdown for a given time and in a self-set time. Maybe that's a difference. So yes, I think that's like, it's starting to develop, that we think of forms, or we think of how to take advantage of the situation. That's how to twist the situation to something that makes us not just experience the lack of something else.
So in a very concrete manner, we talked about maybe picking up this connections that we have to Kolkata, where those performers of the piece 12, 14 years ago were sitting in a call center and performing on a one-on-one basis to hear. And we just started discussing last week. It wasn't at all a planned performance, but we started discussing, could it be maybe in an in-between situation where all the theaters are closed, be an option to make what we call Kolkata at home. So what if the call center operators do home office, or actually they're not even call center operators anymore, but now they would serve from their home. We'll have to start to find out if their connectivities are good enough, but if that would allow people, because people do a lot of video conferencing, everybody, but normally they do it with their bubble. And the incidental meeting in a theater foyer or on the street is getting very difficult, and much more so in a different country. So maybe could it serve a purpose to put you in an intimate situation with somebody in his Indian home, which has obviously a different constellation altogether, but in a way is that I find quite fascinating when we talk about immersive scenographies. In a way, our homes these days are the scenographies of our life. And if we want to talk in the very first instance, at least to people in France and Italy, and I guess in New York, where you have this very strict lockdown rules, then you talk about making theater for that very home.
Mm-hmm. The call Calcutta in a Box, I think it was a pioneering project. And I think that we will find, and have to perhaps find, ways that perhaps digital presence in theaters will be not just in crisis times, but perhaps will be always. People might have, there's opera, ballet, drama, but perhaps there will be something, some kind of an online engagement, not just for crisis times or something that happened. You have done the radio plays, the walks, where audience members also followed your instructions silently, sometimes they saw something or not. Is Rimini Protocol in a way, are you prepared to say, is this a year, would you work from home? Would you create work? Would you create situations where people who, as you said, don't know each other or don't know what you know or someone else knows, will you create something and be an instructor of games from online? Or are you going to wait till you tour again?
No. Well, the Kolkata at Home project is one we're just starting to develop.
You will do, yeah.
Might offer it, because in Europe, you have a lot of festivals now that are telling us, well, we have to cancel the show, but can we have any kind of format that keeps us connected to our audiences? Because this is a need that the theaters feel, that the actors feel, but also that the audience feels. Where is their community? And some people you might know that go together with you to the theater, but many others you just meet randomly a bit on the way. And can it be a way to connect and do these things? Another thing I did kind of out of a desperation one day here, I started writing a little audio tour for home apartments, which now is kind of downloadable on our website. It's just a 6-minute piece that uses the scenography of the home, of everybody's home, not of a particular home, for you to interact in a little audio tour. So more and more, I guess, of these ideas come up now, because it feels kind of hard to plan things for big audience spaces at the moment, because it's so hard to even remember them. They sound like a thing from the past almost.
Yeah.
And the next question is there something that we could invent which is not only involving like this situation, you know, in front of a computer, equipped with a lot of technology, but maybe something else, like your radio plays one example, but is there, I don't know, sometimes streaming of a little box that you just receive, you know, delivery, and then there's you get involved into a play and maybe just, you know, get instructions what to do with your neighbors, how to open the window and so on. And yeah, I think there are many playful approaches of doing this, or any kind of balcony theater, or there have been balcony exhibitions in Berlin recently and so on. So I think people invent, of course, as this is going on. Yeah.
And then there is a big question mark to a lot of people trying to guess, when is the theater opening again? When will be the audiences allowed in again? And what politicians don't have in their vocabulary is that instead of saying, okay, 30th of July, I think is right now, or 31st of August, I think is in the moment the date when they say until then no theater is allowed whatsoever inside theaters. But on the other hand, it's maybe a good moment to think of not opening doors for the big masses. And I'm not necessarily talking about leaving 3 meters of space between the audiences, but still hold a frontal classical performance, because in Switzerland here on the 7th of June, exhibitions will be allowed to have audiences in. I think in Berlin it's already next week or so, because obviously museums can have more space, they can handle at least small audiences, which will be then dealt with carefully, I don't know, with gloves and whatever, masks. And why don't we use those theater spaces in a way as exhibition spaces then? So that's something I'm thinking a lot, and I'm starting to develop something here with the Theater VD in Lausanne, where we thought maybe we could, in a certain way, an audience room, as empty as it is, I actually now go to the theater and look at it. It's so empty, it's a ghost house. And to think of it as an exhibition of the left behind emptiness, I think could be very productive for maybe an audio tour that we thought to develop in these spaces instead of just leaving them empty all the way.
It looks theater almost as a rune, a contemporary perfect shape rune as an object, and to inhabit it in a different way. I think some theaters in France have actors on call, a bit like, not from Calcutta, but in France, and people call in and ask them, can they read a certain poem? So they're on demand, as on-demand acting or reciting of work. Colleagues from US we spoke to in Taiwan said that apps like Tinder or Friendster and others are encouraging users to use the platform, not for dating, but to just meet people, to be out there, so to open the definition of it, which might be an idea in a way to say, how can people connect? But I think there still needs somehow a game director or an inventor of game to make that in a performance way. But as they say, it does work. People do use this in a way of finding new connections. But of course, it's not in the Rimini sense that you also experience something and learn something as some form of a community. By the way, the Taiwanese government gave a lot of money to actually find new ways of forms and to also experiment with digital content. So they gave a remarkable amount of money, I think 160 million on top of already existing arts grants for artists to support them, to create new ways and to really experiment and find something that they also globally want to share. It might be of interest for you guys to collaborate for one of your things. And happy to make a connection. But how is it for you? Do you get support now from theaters or from the government? If everything is canceled till August, Germany, as far as I know, says most probably till next summer, there will be no soccer games live. There will be no big audience, which means also operas, big theaters might be the same. In Poland, they said, Tia Warsawa said, it's so funny. Theaters and massage salons are on the first closed and will be the last to open because it's about bodies, about contact. So if it's really long, how are you supported? How does that work? You're also freelancers and health insurance and all that. How is that situation in Germany?
Well, in the specific situation of us is that our office is funded by the Senate of Berlin. So that means the basic, say the home-based structure is sort of protected as it's funded by the city.
For a couple of years or how?
Yeah, for a couple of years. I think it's a range of 3 years, which excludes us, Helgard, Stefan and me. So we normally just, live on what we're earning by the work that we're doing. So that is we're not we're not employees of our company or so. However, this is already quite a great situation in which we are, because the structure that we need in order to communicate, prepare the things that we're used to doing, that is safe in a way. Then there was in Germany, in every county specific approach to how to protect freelancers in the arts, but also in general from going bankrupt rather soon. And in Berlin, there was, because there's so much work and labor connected to cultural work, the cultural senator for cultures, he even joined the financial hearings and pushed himself in a bit and said, this is so important in Berlin, you can't exclude me. So he made quite a good deal for freelancers in the cultural sector for starts. So there was like a rather unbureaucratic donation to everyone in the first round. And now the situation is a bit different. You can borrow money from the city, but only to cover your professional costs. That means if you have structures that you have to kind of maintain in terms of paying rent or insurance for the company, stuff like that. But as a person yourself, on that level, it's not clear how a continuation would be managed. So that is yet to come. There are debates. There has been a federal minister of cultures who didn't really raise her voice in that respect, and is rather also on hold and waits how the situation develops and how soon things could get back to, say, semi-normal also. So we're all kind of waiting a bit and see how long this takes.
Yeah, I guess important is actually what you mentioned before, like that the appointments for the future are hard to make, and that's a bit more tragic, like because now of course we think of, or we are in the process of applications and fundings and so on, and there after Easter, like I really felt like the situation had changed from in the beginning, where our partners, they would say, yeah, that's a crisis, we keep on going and so on, and suddenly I think they probably received other like signs or messages as well, like from the government to not make too many appointments for the future. And so that's bad, I think. Like, that's really tragic in a way, because otherwise now we could go actually for making concepts and trying to prepare for work that could happen, like as soon as venues and theaters are open again. And there I feel like now everybody, and it's especially, I mean, we are it's what we call it the fringe or the off scene or free group. And our structure, like, we are safe on that side, like the office and so on, but we can't produce a single project without any additional money that we have to make applications for. So if that like chain or this food chain is interrupted, it will be really difficult.
This is really a tough situation where you see the difference in a very harsh way suddenly between the whole city theater system, which in Germany is very, you know, almost 200 state theaters that have a big amount of fixed employees, all from carpenter shop until actors and management and so on. And for these theaters, obviously, it's a crisis. They miss their audience, they don't get the applause and so on, and they can't work now. But they are sure that next year, whenever the curtain is able to rise again, they can just keep working because they don't need to go through all these application processes. And the fringe scene, which especially in a city like Berlin, has been so much encouraged to take their own initiative, to develop new formats and so on. A lot of these people that are working also in a loose connection with us, scenographers, dramaturgs, technicians, they feel a bit left alone by the situation, because suddenly, they realize being independent really, when it comes hard on hard, it kind of, you have no insurance for what's going on. But I guess it's the case for theater makers in many, many countries around the world.
Yeah. So in a way, it's not existential in the moment as it is tragic as in the moment in India or in Egypt, in Lebanon, as we hear, but still also in Germany, artists who, as you say, are part of the free scene, whatever the definition is, or the fringe. Hard to imagine that you think of yourself as Rimini at the fringe. You know, we think is such a great company that is has contributed so much to a global dialogue, more than perhaps some of the higher funded theaters. Even, of course, they do different and also great work in theater. But do you detect something in the mood on the streets if you go out or in talks? Is there a political change happening? Is there a talk that issues that perhaps were not always on the forefront, like, you know, workers, healthcare workers, or the situation for artists on the not being part of a state theater? Is there something where you feel there's a movement happening? Is there something in the air where you feel something is changing in society?
I think generally in politics, the acknowledgement that this century is also a century where care, healthcare, but also for elderly, has to be acknowledged in a total different way. This is something that you can read now a lot. So for this, say, field of labor, this is a phase where of reconsideration also in terms of what are the values of this work and what are time slots that a person needs from somebody who cares, from nurses and so on. Apparently this could be a push towards an understanding that this is an essential layer of a society in 21st century that has been not acknowledged enough. When it comes to other political themes here in Berlin, at least it's very, very present slogans all over when it comes to evacuating the camps in Greece, which are camps, and this might not be really on the not so present in the US, but
the refugee camps.
Well, yeah, there are camps of overloaded by several 100%, as in camps that they were made for 3,000 people max, and there are 40,000 minimum. And now, due to political constructions, they're not permitted to leave the islands. Partly, there are people who have been born there and they are now 7, 8 years old, you know, and they don't know anything else than these camps, totally provisoric. Any aid comes from not the Greek government, but private organizations who withdrew now most of their workers. And it's a time bomb in terms of the virus, because the only way the Greek government so far reacts is trying to evacuate some of the people, but mainly they keep the line of not permitting them to quit the camps or the overall atmosphere on the island has very much changed from being very supportive. I'm talking about the inhabitants of the islands, to an increase of racism and just an atmosphere of it's enough. Why don't these people understand that there's no point in coming to us, because they can't proceed, they can't go any further because Europe locked the iron fence and even accepted Greece to break human rights and also rights that are granted within the EU, as in freedom of where you want to move, and the freedom to apply for asylum and things like that. But the debate about, on the other hand, for example, culture as being an essential instrument of education and social exchange, of an essential platform where also you can deal with different concepts and experiences within society, other than on a political level. This debate has not started yet, but I guess is very needed to come, because who knows what will be on the bill that we're all going to pay for all these tremendous amounts of billions that have been just, thrown into the European and market, as well as just within every country, so that the thing keeps going. But this is a bill that we're going to have to pay all. And there will be surely a lot of debates about how essential has been the work that we all have been doing within the cultural sector, what's needed, what does it help? And so there is also about defending the freedom of art, because as soon as you can explain, as soon as a politician can explain what this piece was good for, this might be easier for him or her to also kind of explain why there was a funding for it. So to be completely integrated in a pedagogical context. Arts, however, are not an extension of teaching. There must be a freedom that had been protected quite well, at least here in Germany, where I guess there will be needed to defend it at some point soon.
Inside Europe, we've seen now borders appear very strongly. Even within Germany, there were for some time borders between certain regions, where here in Switzerland, there have been certain regions that have been asked, because they're in the countryside, for people not to come and visit those regions for people that have been houses. So these are struggles about suddenly that have been a challenge to the utopian project of the European Union, or actually quite pragmatical project to improve the situations on a European level. So these will be big questions in the aftermath as well to talk about. And I'm particularly afraid, like, what's going to be happening if some countries start having less infected people sooner than others? How long will they keep those borders closed? And in the end, it's the same thing about the territories in the cities as well. From the moment on, which is not yet a situation in New York, but in Germany, in the last weeks, we've been starting all these discussions about what to open first and when. And as long as it was about closing, I think we there was quite a solidarity in the air between all the political parties. But now, as soon as it's about opening, it's very much about lobbyism. So there have been certain regions where the car shops were the first ones to open because they're important for the other places. The furniture shops were the ones that had apparently the strongest connection to politicians. In other places, there were in Estonia, I think that the restaurants seemed to, for whatever reason, still open or partly open, and they seem to have a good connection. And in this race, obviously, theater seems to have a very bad connection to politics, because in Germany, nobody mentions really that outside of the feuilleton discussions.
And how is the mood? What do you feel about among artists or the theater community you hang out with? Is it, people say it's going to be just a break? It's a pause button, or do people feel it's going to be a real seizure? In the US, there are predictions that a third of all nonprofits will close, whether they're theater communities or also arts community projects, but also supporters, foundations. Will most probably not be able to refund and going out. So is in Germany there any sense of doom, or do people feel we're going to rebuild this, a chance we can actually make it better than before?
That'll be nice if we could hear this. Yeah, there are not many official voices about this. Like if you talk to like fellow artists, of course, like at first everybody was like coping with the situation, and there was this kind of special first aid program, which I think comforted everybody a little bit, because everybody had the feeling, okay, you can apply very easily and you get some drops of water without a big like bureaucratic burden, and it's more on the long run, I think, where we have to talk about now, and there are no answers yet, and I think it will have a severe impact of many things, like as well, like the economic situation, as well as of content, like what will be shown when we open the theaters again, and who will get support and so on. And there's hardly, like outside the feuilleton, outside the cultural field, it's not really mentioned. It was mentioned in the beginning, like, oh, what a pity the theaters are closing, and whoa, oh, what a pity, like the festivals are closed, but now it's all about consume. Actually, it's about how do we get people back to buy products and to serve the economy, but nothing more. A little bit education, I mean, a bit, that's a discussion too, like how do we deal with the situation of the students, of course, and in schools, and it's very chaotic, I feel, but culture is really, massage studio and culture, as you said, it's maybe what we call, like, there's this discussion about being system relevant or not, and it doesn't seem to be this in there through the official glasses.
It could be for the theater scene also a bit a chance to say we might look at other spaces again. I've seen site-specific work quite a bit disappearing in Berlin, for instance. If you apply for money, you need to have what they call a Spielstättengenehmigung. It's a kind of a paper that says, okay, the Hau Theater or the Sophiensäle or another theater is your partner in this, and then it's normally happening inside those spaces. And if those spaces in their way, in their architectonic constellations are dangerous, maybe not only this year, but even next year, I'd be curious to see if theater makers that are kind of, in the end, organizers of the social coming together can then, if that public space theater is not available, work outside. I've been part of a beautiful rehearsal here of Massimo Furlan's new piece. He's a Swiss-based artist, and he's creating a walk in the night through the forest, which is obviously a piece that totally can happen. We have in Berlin and in Santiago de Chile a piece that is an app basically, where you listen to stories that were of people that in the 70s and 80s have had to deal with surveillance and dictatorship in particular places, and you can listen to these pieces out in the city. And that's actually, in the moment, in as far as I know, the only theater piece, if you want to call it a theater piece, in Berlin, totally visitable. You can download the app now and you can go for a walk and listen to these testimonies. So these forms of site-specific works will probably be a way also to connect with the needs of people to be out there again once they're allowed to.
And how are you guys spend your days? Do you look at online performances? Do you look at the virtual gallery walkthrough? Do you look at colleagues who put up some content fast or something they already had? What do you think of all of it?
Yeah, I follow it a little bit, but I at first I had the feeling, okay, there was such a rush in just, you know, going into the digital world and all those streamings and all those yeah, this like the transfer into this into the screens, which I didn't really enjoy. Like I think like from a scientific perspective, of course, it's interesting like to look at documents and to see even like especially the ones, yeah, the older like documents that popped up and so on. That's interesting, but I don't really enjoy it. So I was trying to look more at the trees and the sky. So but now, of course, maybe it's good to find this kind of arrangement and see a little bit like what has been done, and to kind of come up with new ideas as well.
I watched Klaus Michael Grüber's Winterreise, which was
for
back
example,
in 1977, the empty
Olympic Stadium.
Built
by but that's one of those old documents, and suddenly you see it. That's fantastic. I think to get them like open the archives. It's interesting.
But I also saw quite a good live experiment by the Kammerspiele. I think you had Toshiki Okada in your Segal talk some weeks ago, and they did an experimental version where they didn't show at all the recording of the piece, but the actors performed on Zoom as we are talking right now, the text, which is talking about people that are back in their home, not talking a lot about sex, but not having it. And so it totally, in a way, made total sense, because I don't know how many singles are out there, maybe not being able to use Tinder anymore to connect. And
true, yeah, I think Okada, who also said he does try to do some directing work, and now he works with about monologues, which he always does. He said, well, he found it interesting that all of a sudden the actor shares the same space on his screen than he does as the director. You know, normally the actor listens more, or is, you know, not a tool, but you know, he fulfills the vision of the director, but all of a sudden they have the same size on my screen and the same voice, and you don't talk over each other, you have to listen. So he feels something, in a way it was something interesting. And of course there's the old Japanese idea anyway of the screen, you know, the screen that's painted, that hides something that's not there. So, but of course he can't wait to get back. So are you guys reading material? Do you read books or something, or you listen to something you also rediscover? Daniel, also maybe you say about something about what you watch or not. And
yeah, I enjoy literature a lot at the moment, and also reading to each other. This is something that, but this is private, you know, that there's not so much time normally, and now you can use it more for this. And also I benefit from, I guess that we're not alone. So we can just focus more on what normally is maybe not so much in the center as in time together, and what can we do together? What do we want to speak about? And it's just great. I mean, there's for me, this is a fantastic time that personally that could really, continue to be like that a bit. And yeah, also books are fantastic performances. Pictures are fantastic pieces if you spend time with them. So I don't think that there's too much the need of kind of replacing or trying to kind of recreate the notion of being together on huge 100, 200 people Zoom face parties. I mean, that's fantastic as an experience once, but it doesn't replace to be in the same space together. I think one thing that there has been all this debate about bubbles, social bubbles and media bubbles, and where we get our information from who, about who do we know how they are and what they think. So one chance could be to develop new technologies, perhaps outside Tinder, or perhaps, I don't know, I've never used it, but where you would come across somebody perhaps also with other questions than dating, as in what people might want to share. I'm talking about the global audience that is globally also a performer, because we're many at least globally are capable to meet you on this level. So why should I care about a performance artist in Berlin as I normally do? I can speak to someone I could use the time that way. So I'm trying that in seminars that I'm giving at the moment, to encourage people and also myself to just, how's that called? Reach out, or, just get out of this bubble of who you could contact anyway, and to just make personal encounters that are independent from from the space, as we're normally very much related to where we are, and that is with who we speak, and whose work we're watching. So in a way, it's a liberation of, or a flattening of what the globe is, and with who I speak. It just depends on time zones. So I think this is a potential that perhaps can be explored more as we're less traveling and moving. That could also change the scope of where we are. This global notion of we all have the same problem because everyone has to kind of defend against the potential infection and has to be solidaric with those who then would suffer a lot from it. It will, like it already started in Germany, also globally it started to split up again into nations, and more nations other than Mr. Trump are saying us first, we need the vaccine first, and so there's a counter movement to this global notion that makes it maybe even more important to cross borders on this level of one-to-one communication or small group communications and other strategies, and exchanging other things than how are you,
Yeah. So Helgard and Stefan, what are you listening to or reading? What are the books what's your input you're getting?
Well, I was really diving into audio recordings that I did, like starting in November. I made a series of interviews with ambassadors, like on the question, and other experts on the question, how does a country celebrate its country? How do you celebrate your country? So I was totally busy in transcribing those recordings and creating the script actually. So no further input from my side. I mean, I tend to listen to radio and feature a lot anyway, while taking a shower or while riding the bicycle or whatsoever. So there's a lot of on this audio input. There's a lot. But I learned how to, I don't know the word, pikieren. What is the English word for pikieren? Tomaten pikieren.
Oh,
to spike.
To spike plants.
Yeah. Yes, so there's always plants. An experiment. Each day I do a little experiment in how to learn a new thing, and spike tomatoes?
I think, or splicing, I don't know. Yeah, splicing,
Okay.
maybe. You connect different plants to each other. And
No. I'm not connecting, but I'm like, when they grow a little, you plant them in new pots.
Oh, yes. So you do gardening work. Yeah, great.
Yes.
I started to enter the universe of Thomas Pynchon. I don't know if the curfew will be long enough for this, but but he requires time.
Good. Stefan, what are you immersing in books, literature, or do you experience the moment you're in your room? Is there?
Yes, I'm mostly through a book that Helgard recommended to me last summer, which is Julia C.'s book about Unterleuten, it's called. It's a very German thing. I don't think this is translated into other languages, about life on a countryside and how it's intervened by windmills that are set up for wind power energy generators. But we're also finding quite some good time now, which is a good thing, to revise our own book, which we've been, I think, for 7 years now struggling to publish our book about all our works and so on, and it's been delayed again, and now I think we're really we're close to. I think in June it should be out.
Fantastic. That is a fantastic idea. So we hear from Rimini Protokoll where the situation is serious but not existential. The company is open for business, as we hear. So if any great theaters are listening, this might be a good time to catch them when you sometimes couldn't. It's also a bit stunning to hear that your great company, so successfully, has such an impact on the scene, is so deeply worried. So also for your lives and for your livelihood, and to also pay your wages and care for your families. And I hope that Germany and the city of Berlin will, recognize for you, but also for your colleagues, that the enormous contribution you have made to world theater. And perhaps, who knows, maybe we'll see one day a Tinder Rimini Protokoll project, or something else where you do something where you kind of a Spielleiter, an instructor of people and getting together. You're such masters in it, but always with a social, political, and historical context. So thank you for joining, and perhaps who knows how long this goes in. We check in again and hear an update of your situation. It's great that all three of you could make it. It's a big honor. I'm really so sad that the Brooklyn 100% did not happen. Everybody has been waiting in New York City for this, because we have done it in over 30 cities, and it's stunning that it didn't happen in New York. I think the Philadelphia version was out there. To the credit of BAM, they got you in there. It's a big loss for the city.
Actually, just one thing just came to my mind. All these theaters in Germany, at least, they're announcing their live streaming or their streaming of old pieces. But actually, for whoever wants to see 100% piece or any other of our performances, on our website, Rimini Protokoll, you'll find it. Most of our performances are all the time free, available for people who love watching theater on the screen. Some of them are quite well documented, others a bit less. And there's also a lot of radio plays for German speakers, German listeners, all for free. So
yeah, maybe you could also do a schedule and formally have during the week this and this and this, and one of you is there and introduces it, so you have a little streaming like the show with it. But yes, it's a tremendous resource. You're very open with your work. You share it. It's all available. It's often unthinkable in the United States with all the complications of recording artwork. And so thank you. And I hope your listeners will be able to join us for Guy Régy Jr. from Haiti, Jalila Bakar, Tunisia. We're going to have Peter Sellers, the great director, and Oscar Eustace and Tony Torn. Thanks you for listening. We know how busy these days are. We need great theater and performance. We also need a great audience, a participating audience. So it means a lot for us that you took the time. And you guys, hope you have a good dinner wherever you are in Berlin and Lucerne. And I can't wait the day that you come back and we have a Segal evening with you in New York City. At the Segal.
Thank you very much, Frank. Thanks everybody for listening.